a part of changing the course of one of the saddest stories in human history and making it into a story of great hope.
The teachings of the Buddha give us hope that we can overcome suffering and awaken to a new kind of knowledge, a knowledge based on contentment, joy, and peace. Since the 8th century, the people of Tibet have been cultivating this inner knowledge, focusing on the development of compassion and spiritual insight rather than material concerns. Through intensive training and enormous personal effort, many great Tibetan masters came to embody the Buddha's teachings and passed on their realization to successive generations of practitioners. Tibet itself became a repository of Buddhist sacred literature from throughout Asia. Countless great works were produced, offering insight into how to live a meaningful and compassionate life. During the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s and 1970s, occupying forces in Tibet altered this way of life forever.
Around 6,000 monasteries were destroyed in Tibet, and only about 12 were left standing. And just to get a sense of the scale of destruction, we can imagine that every university, every school, every church in America, in our country, would be destroyed.
With the death or imprisonment of great spiritual teachers and a universal ban on the expression of religious devotion, the complete erasure of Tibet's culture, language, and spiritual traditions seemed imminent. Some Tibetans undertook the dangerous journey over the Himalayas to escape into exile in India, often bringing with them nothing more than the clothes on their backs and a few precious texts. Tibetan refugees remain scattered throughout the subcontinent today, subsisting under difficult conditions with minimal resources. Now the aging generation of refugees faces an imposing question. Is Tibet, the way it used to be, forgotten? Sometimes it can be difficult to see a glimmer of hope when it is right in front of us. For the last 19 years, thousands of Tibetans have come together every January to offer prayers for the peace and well-being of all humanity. The World Peace Ceremony, founded in 1989 by the Tibetan Lama Tartang Tulku, is held in Bodh Gaya, India, at the very site of the Buddha's enlightenment over 2,500 years ago. The ceremony in Bodh Gaya continues the tradition of holding a great prayer festival each winter to renew a sense of community and to reaffirm positive intentions for the coming year.
This is an incredibly important and historic ceremony. Now every year there are about 10,000 monks and nuns who come from all over India and Bhutan and Nepal. You know, some of them walk for an entire month just to attend the ceremony. For years, Bodh Gaya was floundering in relative obscurity, but now with the ceremony we have helped to rejuvenate Bodh Gaya as the vital place of pilgrimage that it really should be.
The celebration has taken on additional meaning. It provides the setting for a unique project devoted to the revitalization of Tibet's spiritual heritage. Every year at this ceremony, volunteers from the Tibetan Aid Project and its sister organizations give away hundreds of thousands of traditional Tibetan texts to help replace those that have been lost or destroyed over the last 6 decades. Selected by Tartang Tulku, these texts provide a link for continued transmission of traditional courses of study and practice to the next generation of Tibetan-speaking students throughout the Himalayan region. This is their birthright.
We can't go back in time and reverse what happened in Tibet, But what we can do is focus on the production of these texts, in which lies the unique heart of Tibet's identity. We've given away over 2 million sacred texts. This constitutes the largest free distribution of books in recorded history. And we're not a large international organization, we're not vastly funded, but we are a small, non-profit, 100% volunteer-based organization that has been surprisingly very effective. And we are headed by a former refugee himself, who's my father.
The enthusiasm and gratitude with which young Tibetans receive these texts are overwhelming. The availability of these Tibetan language books and the opportunity to participate in these ceremonies have enabled the children and grandchildren of refugees to connect with the heart of the Tibet they've never seen.
So in Tibet, it was not common for students to have large personal collections of books, but what we've been doing is giving away books every year to both individual students as well as their institutions, the monasteries. We've calculated that if somebody came every year for the past 19 years, they would have amassed about 385 texts. We are the largest provider of Tibetan sacred texts in exile. So we're helping to guide the curriculum of study for an entire generation of practitioners, allowing both nuns and monks to have equal access to these sacred teachings. There is a kind of democratizing effect in the distribution, a removal or an easing of the gender bias. So that's very satisfying.
In the West, the production of these texts has also planted seeds of wisdom. Hundreds of volunteers have dedicated their time and efforts to this cause, preparing over 2.2 million texts with no direct material benefits in return. Through the practice of selfless generosity, the volunteers themselves benefit as much as the recipients do.
There's something magical in something freely given so that one can truly receive. When you participate in this process at the World Peace Ceremony, it is as if you are standing in the midst of the entire stream of Tibet's incredibly ancient, important, sacred, and also very endangered culture moving forward and out into the world.
The message of these texts is peaceful, subtle, poetic, and profound. The world can ill afford to lose contact with these teachings of hope and compassion, which have the ability to provide an open and healing perspective on the human condition in difficult times. Without the possibility of authentic transmission from teacher to student, the true meanings of these teachings may be lost forever. The urgency of the project is clear. Although its ancient lineages still face many challenges, Tibet has not been forgotten. Its spirit still dwells in the pure and eager minds of the young, in the quiet murmurs of monks and nuns, in the working hands of volunteers, and in the compassionate hearts of donors and allies alike. From all of us at the Tibetan Aid Project, thank you for your vital support of our mission.